All right, guys. So if you're joining in, I'm just going to go ahead and start. I know it's a Friday night, so we might not get that many viewers on tonight. But pretty much where we left off on in episode 1 was we created a next.js application. Then we started working on the register page, and we are working on it through auth.js version 5. So if you're not familiar with it, we're using auth.js version 5, which is in beta. We installed the package right here. We configured our application with a auth.ts file, a auth.config file, and our catch-all route. We are using the Google provider and the credentials provider. So we set that up. And the Google provider, we went through the Google Cloud Console. We answered the questions necessary to get that up and going. So our Google provider is working, and it's getting sent back to our database, which we are using MongoDB, and we're using Prism ORM to actually connect it. So the Google provider is completely done. It's functional, working how it should, and it's actually sending users to the database. And then where we left off last night was we finished the form, and we used the form from ShadCN, and we finished the form on the client side, and then I was working on the on submit, and then we ended the stream there. So that's where we're going to pick up on, and we're going to start from there. I did write a few things that I want to get done in the stream. So for this live stream number 2, we're going to complete the UI of the register and login form. We're also going to create the functionality of the register and login form, so the backend. We're going to create a functions that gets the current user from the session. So that's by using the auth function that next.auth provides us. And then we're also going to create a function that creates and sends an email verification token. And then we might do more stuff depending on the time. But that would almost round up all the authentication for our SaaS product. And if you don't recall, the SaaS that we're creating is going to allow users to build pretty much a chatbot widget on their website very easily, especially it's pretty much like a no-code chatbot. They're going to be able to create a custom chatbot based on PDF files, a website, site maps, just any documents that you want to feed it. They're going to be able to get a script tag, place the script tag in the head of their application, either it's Wix, WordPress, any kind of coding application, they should be able to do it. And then they're going to have a widget on their website that's a custom chatbot. So let's see if anybody has joined. Looks like we got somebody in here. So if you're in here, if you want to ask any questions, you can. I have the screen open on the other side, but other than that, let's just jump into the code and actually start coding stuff out. So I'm going to close a bunch of files up right here. Okay. And I'm just going to go have this on full screen like this. And then I'm just going to go back and forth between the pages like this. And let me, okay. So what we have is, like I said, we ended up stopping on the register form. And inside of our app directory, we have a auth folder and then a register folder with a page.tsx. We kept this as a server page because we want to make sure most of our pages are server side because it's just a lot more benefits when it's all said and done. We have a register form that we are rendering inside of it. And this register form is the use client. Reason why is because we have to use a hook, primarily the use form hook, and that does require it to be a client-side page. And then we're also using the use state hook just so we can show a loading state on the button. We created a card wrapper component, and the card wrapper component is essentially just the card component from ShadCN, as you can see here. And we have a card, we have the card header, we have the card content, which is going to be all the children, which all the children are technically everything inside of the register form. So everything inside of this card wrapper. So it's all of this right here. Okay. So let's go back into the card wrapper. And as I can see, I have the card. I have a card header, which is the auth header, which is going to be dynamic depending if the page is going to be a register page or if it's going to be the login page. And what we want to do here is we are getting the label and the title. We are getting that actually from the register form. So as you can see, we get a header label, which is the create an account, and the title, which is the register. And then when we have the login form, the header label is going to be pretty much log in to your account, and the title is going to be log in. So that is kind of how this goes. And the next thing we want to do is we want to add a card footer. And for this card footer, we actually want to add the back button. So just in case a user went on the wrong page, the user is actually just going to be able to just click the back button and go to either the register page if they're on login or log into the register. Hey Akash, what's up? How you doing? Can you please make a video on next.js, TypeScript, Prism, MongoDB from beginner to advanced? Yeah, so I could definitely do that. Let me I always write down video ideas inside of my Notion, so let me do that real quick. So I'm assuming just like an overview of all that from starting from beginner to advanced. Nothing very specific, but just pretty much all the topics. Hey, what's up, Harshit? I don't want to keep butchering the name. Thank you again for joining. I remember you from obviously last night. But let me add this real quick. So YouTube video projects. And what I could do is it could just be on next.js, TypeScript, Prism, and MongoDB. And I usually like adding this icon, which it's not doing now, but that's fine. And I'm just going to do from beginner to advanced. Okay, cool. I just want to see how many, this is the only way I could kind of see how many people are in here. I just refreshed this. So we got you both that are in here. Perfect. Okay. So let's work on this back button right here. That's going to go inside of the card footer. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a component. It's going to be called back button. And then the back button, we're going to have to pass in a few things. So for the back button, we're going to pass in the label. And we're getting the label from the back button label. As you can see here, I named it. So we're going to have label equals back button label. And then we're also going to have an href, which we're just going to say href equals back button href. And it's a self-closing tag, self-closing component. And then we need to create this back button component. So I'm going to do it inside the auth right here, inside of the components folder. We're going to create a new file. We're going to call this the backbutton.tsx. And inside of this, we are going to make this a button from ShadCN. So we're going to import the button. And this is coming from, I like doing the @ symbol better. So @components/UI/button. And then we also need the link, and this is going to be from next/link, so we could actually navigate to the other page. We're going to define an interface. We could call it back button props. We're going to have the label as a string and the href as a string. Let's export the cons as the back button. We're going to call this function back button. It is going to accept 2 parameters. And the reason why is because we are passing them in right here inside the back button. So we are accepting the label and the href. So let's destructure that and then set it to back button props as the type. Let's get the curly braces so we can actually enter our code. Let's get the return, some parentheses. And this is just a button component. And we want to make it dynamic. That's why we're doing a different file, because one back button might say return to what are the labels? Let's check real quick. So the labels are going to be for this back button label, it's already have an account, and the back button href is going to take us to the auth/login page. So we're going to have a button. Let's just do that, cover it. And then we could have a link, and the link requires an href property, and the href is technically just going to be the href, which is going to be the /auth/login. Close this, and then inside of this, we can name the button as the label. So the label is going to be like, and it's lowercase l. So like that, and then we could do a different variant for the button. So variant could equal link. And if you want, you can actually remove this, and you could check out all the variants either through here, like space. I know there's a way you could do it, but you do just a string, and then it gives you all the variants here. And like I said, we're just going to do link, and you could test them all out to see how they look. Let's add a few Tailwind CSS classes. We'll keep the font normal and the width full. And then you have a size attribute that we could add to this. We could keep this small. And then we need to add the AskChild prop as well. And that's just coming through chatCN's docs. Let me open the development server real quick. And let's just keep making sure we go back and forth and looking at it. I don't want to have it side by side because I feel like there's not enough room for you guys to see. So I'm just going to go back and forth between the pages. So we're at the auth/register page. And we never actually imported the back button because it's undefined. So let's do that real quick. So inside the card wrapper, we don't have this imported. So we're getting an error. And that's the file we just created. What does the AskChild do? If you go to the next.js docs, not next.js docs, the chatCN UI docs, and we go to the button component, and if you look at the code, I'm not in the button, so we go to the button, and if you look at the code, where is it? Here it is. Alternatively, you can set the AskChild parameter and nest the link component. So pretty much, I guess it just allows you to nest, excuse me, it allows you to nest the link component inside of the button. So if you don't have to, I guess, nest the link component, then you don't have to have the AskChild parameter. I guess it just makes the link clickable. That's what it does. But the docs don't really give too much. But I know a bunch of these buttons and stuff are built off like Radix, UI, and stuff like that. So that's what that is for. But now we have the back button, so let's check the development server. So that is our register form right now for our application. Looks pretty good. So if you already have an account, it's going to take us to a page we haven't created yet. So perfect. So we have an email, name, password, confirm password. The thing we worked on at the end was if nothing's here, we made sure that the titles were black instead of red. And we have these error messages like invalid email, name is required, password must be at least 6 characters long, and then just confirm passwords required. And we're getting these error messages from, just so you guys know where everything's coming from, these error messages are actually coming from that register schema. So the register schema right here, password must be at least 6 characters long, 6 characters long, name is required, stuff like that. So you could change the error messages inside of your schema. Okay, so after we created the back button, next thing we need to do is let's go inside the register form, make sure everything looks good. Everything looks pretty good. We tested the console log, so we actually do get all the data, and then we set the loading to true. So next thing we need to do is we actually need to create the backend for this on submit right here. So the backend, we could either use a server action or we can actually use an API route. So I'm going to use a server action. Essentially, it's like the same thing as an API route, honestly, but the server action is a little newer, and I know they're probably pushing that more than the actual API routes. And there is a few benefits to it, but I actually got to look at the docs to kind of see what they were. I think it's like less back and forth between your client and server and so forth. But let's create a new folder inside of just the root layer of our application called actions. So this is where we store all the actions. And the first one we could do is we could do the register.ts file. And the first thing for use server is you need to mark this as a use server to make sure all the code in here is secured on the server. And because it's not technically an API route, so we need to make this as a use server. So this is for sure pretty much on our server. Next thing we need to do is we need to do a few imports. So we need to actually import all from AZ from Zod. We also need to be able to access our Prism methods, and our Prism methods are inside of our lib folder and then inside the file prismdb.ts. This gives us global access to Prism client, which allows us to actually use the methods like find many, find one, update many, delete, all these Prism methods you can see on the docs, but that allows us to make pretty much calls to our database and then do specific queries that we need done. And we're exporting this as database. So we need to import that at the top, database, and this is coming from @lib/prismdb. Another thing we want to do is we need to encrypt the password when they register in our database for extra protection. So a package we're going to do that's pretty popular is bcrypt.js. That's all we need to do is install bcrypt, and it's installed. I still have my server running on the other terminal. We're just going to import bcrypt.js, or just you could do bcrypt from bcrypt.js. And bcrypt is declared but its value is never read. Could not find a declaration file for module bcrypt.js. Try npm install. So we have to install its types. So we can just copy this, Control C, paste it, and then we can install the types as a dev dependency. So this error should go away. Now it's away, and it's just saying it's declared but its value is never read. What if you use Agron? What if we use Agron rather than bcrypt? I've never used Agron before, but we could look at it. Why? Do you think it's better than bcrypt? It's called Agron. npm. Hashing passwords in Agron too. 172,000 weekly downloads. Let's see bcrypt. I just want to see the bcrypt downloads. Almost 2 million. Ooh. But inside, yes, so bcrypt has 2 million weekly downloads versus Agron, which has 172,000. I think bcrypt is, it seems like bcrypt is like tried and true. Last published was 7 years ago. Last published was a day ago. I mean, it looks like it's a game maintained more than this one, but I'm going to look into Agron. Agron is computationally hard to break. Is bcrypt easier to break, or what's the deal with that? Let me refresh this to see. Is bcrypt easier or harder to break? Because search Agron versus bcrypt. Have you ever used Agron before? More secure but demands more resources. It's excellent for offline key derivation but can be an overkill for some web applications. Bcrypt offers a balanced approach. It's less resource intensive, making it a suitable choice for web apps where response time is critical. Do you like it better than Bcrypt? As an engineer, you like come across concepts of data hashing. When you're handling sensitive data, both hashing and encryption are important to cytography and are often confused, and choosing the right algorithms for your use case is not necessarily a straightforward decision. Agron 2 is designed by Alex. Is this him? Maybe not. It might be Dimitri from the University of Luxembourg. They released their specific paper on Agron 2 in 2015. In the same year, they won the password hashing competition organized by a global panel of security and cryptographic experts. In their paper, designers stated their motivation for creating Agron 2 is to maximize the cost of password cracking, and that passwords, despite all their drawbacks, remain the primary form of authentication. Bcrypt was designed in 1999. Damn. They based their hashing algorithm on Blowfish, an encryption algorithm created by Bruce Sheiner in 1993 to take advantage of its purposeful, expensive key setup phase. They state that the computational cost of any secure password scheme must increase as hardware improves. Let me see. Agron 2. Have you used it in a next.js application? It seems TypeScript usage. So that's how easy it is right there. It's that a TypeScript type declaration file is published with this modular. If you use TypeScript 20.2.0, that means you don't need any installation. Simply use the libraries mentioned above. Okay, I think this is a good viable option. I'm gonna stick with Bcrypt for my project, but I'm gonna do more research. Yeah, it looks the same. It's just like const hash equals await agron2.hash and then the password. It seems simple. That's an easy change. I'm gonna do more research on it to see, but I'm gonna stick with Bcrypt right now. But that's a really good recommendation. I started already. Just go back to it later. But yeah, the downloads, it's almost like 20 times more in Bcrypt. Okay, so let's go back real quick. We have Bcrypt from Bcrypt.js. We also want to import our register schema from the schemas folder. And then let's create the function const register equals async. And then I want to try to do this without looking at anything. So if you have any recommendations for this backend syntax, let me know. But we could go through this step by step. Inside of the register form, we need to pass in some data to the backend. So I can remove this console log. Is there any difference between Bcrypt versus Bcrypt.js? I don't know. I think there is. I just heard that Bcrypt.js is more reliable and just better, so I always stick with Bcrypt.js. But I think it is different. I'm gonna move the register from the actions folder inside the register. And I'm just gonna pass in the data. Expected 0 arguments, but got 1. So we need to accept the argument down here. We could do as the type c.infer. How does that syntax look? I'm just going to steal it from here. Control C. Am I doing something wrong with the syntax here? Okay, yeah, there we go. So now we get the data. The data is email, name, password confirmation. Data is declared, but its value is never read. Okay. So I know the first thing we should validate the data on the back end. So validated data equals the register schema dot parse. We could use parse, and we're going to parse that data. We could console log this and see what it gives us. Validated data. Let's go to our front end real quick and let's actually just submit a form. It's going to keep loading because I never set the state off, and it shouldn't do anything else. Let's check the console in our server. Validated data, email, name, password confirmation. So it's actually giving us the data, and it's validating it through the parse. So it's actually giving us it back. Okay. Let's just do a check, I guess. If there is no validated data, let's return an error, and then we could just say invalid input data. Okay. Next we could do is, I'm going to write the comments above so we know what's going on. We're going to validate the input data. Then we are going to, if the data is invalid, return an error. Next, we should destructure the validated data. So we get email, name, password, and I think we get, what is it? Password confirmation. Yeah. I might change that name. I kind of don't like it. It's not bad. Okay. So we revalidated we destructured the validated data. Next, we're going to say, we got to check the passwords, I guess. So if password doesn't equal password confirmation, we return passwords do not match. That's good. So we could do a check on the passwords. Check if passwords match. And if they don't match, we're going to return an error. And if they, after that, yeah, we can hash the password. That means everything's good. Const hash password equals await bcrypt.hash. We get the password and we pass in 10, which is, I think, the default value for the hash. And then we can insert the user into the database. We actually need to check. We need to do another check to see if user already exists. So we're going to do const user exist equals await. We could use the database dot user dot. Is it find first? I kind of want to know the difference between find. I think there's a find. Oh no, there isn't. Wait. Yeah, there isn't. So it's a find first. Okay, cool. Find first, find many, find unique. Oh yeah, it's gonna be find first. And then what we could do here is where, and it's email. Let me just make sure. So we go to our schema. I'm gonna look in the user because that's the only way they're getting created when they actually register their account. Hey, what's up, Loco? Wouldn't it be strict does not equal? Let me check. You saw file not find. I don't. I saw. Oh, I typed filed. No, I typed. There's no find. It's find. It's either find first, find many, find unique. So find first. I'm assuming, and then you're saying this should be strict. Yeah, it could be strict. Wait, no, it can't be like that though. That's the wrong syntax. You have it like that? Equals. Yeah, no problem, Amon. I'm glad it helped. I know I messaged you in Discord and you said you got it. And I forgot to respond to you actually. Yeah, I could help you. I could help you on whatever project you need help on as well. Yeah, I don't. You know what's a cool feature? Do you guys have GitHub Copilot? If you do, say yes. If you don't, say no. Because this feature alone might like change your mind. Let me see who has it, who doesn't. Okay, while I'm waiting for you guys to respond to that, I'm going to highlight this code here, and then I'm going to right-click, and then we have Copilot right here, this extension. So Copilot's like a kind of, no. Copilot, it is a paid, pretty much extension. It's a paid extension for your VS Code, but it gives you pretty much so many different features. So if you actually highlight some code, you go over to Copilot and you could click explain this. And then right here on the left side of the screen, it will explain the code to you pretty much like if you put in a ChatGPT. So all of it is in one area. And I mean, you could do your whole component, copy, and then explain the code, and it'll explain the code. So for that operator, the operator in JavaScript and TypeScript is the strict inequality operator. It returns true if the operands are not equal and or not of the same type. And in this case, it checks password and password confirmation are not exactly the same, including both value and type. I mean, it gives you a whole explanation on pretty much the code that you highlight. And that's just one feature of many. Obviously, it finishes the code for you. And obviously, it's not always right, but it's definitely learning and getting better. Let me go back. What is you making? I'm making a SaaS product that's pretty much gives the user the ability to create a chatbot on their website. So we're in a little widget. So I'm going to show you exactly kind of how it looks. So if you've ever been on a website, here at the bottom right, you got a little widget and it's a chatbot. So any person who has a website would kind of need this, and we're going to give them the ability to pretty much easily create a chatbot without any code, and we're going to send them a script tag so they can implement it into their head on their code, either if it's WordPress, Wix, whatever it is, and then they'll have a chatbot set up in a few steps on their website. So that's what we're creating. Hey, what's up, Inspector? Appreciate it. Appreciate you joining. Inspector Oaks, hey Brett, it's good to see you here. It's good to see you too, man. But that's what we're creating. We're creating the widget. So we're gonna have to create a script tag for our users so they could just implement it on their website. But this one right here, the one that you see on my website here, that's actually from, I keep VoiceFlow. So if you know VoiceFlow, they have a software like that as well. I know this isn't code helpful, but have you heard of Vira code? What it is a ligature that joins characters or to make it look cool. I actually haven't. I can look it up real quick, but and I have it on my screen. Fire code. It's a font. No, it's an extension. Okay, so it's like a font style. Okay, cool. I'll keep this tab up though. I'm gonna have so many tabs when I'm done, but let's go back to the code and my development server. So if you guys are joining, this is what we've already created. We created this register component. And we're working on the backend logic right now. So if you enter email, password, we register, and it just goes to loading. But if you look in our console in our backend, I actually took the console log away. We are just validating the data, taking it through, and we're doing checks for now. So right now we're checking to see if the user already exists, and if they do, we're actually going to, if the user exists, we're gonna have to return an error. So you see all this code right here, it's giving me recommendations. This is GitHub Copilot. Like I said, it's not right all the time, but it's pretty good, and I think it's definitely worth it. So if the user exists, we're going to return an error that user already exists. And obviously you could change it. I just press tab. If you press the tab button, it displays the code. So after we do the checks, we make sure the data is valid. We destructure it. We check the passwords match. If they do match, we hash the password. Then we check to see if the user already exists. And if the user exists, we return an error. Next, we just got to pretty much put the user in our database now. So we're going to create the user. And look how easy GitHub Copilot is. I've done this kind of code before, so it's trained based on what I've coded in the past. So we are going to store the user in a user variable. We're going to use the database.user.create. We're going to create the email, the name, and the password. We don't have to send the password confirmation, no point. We just got to make sure it checks. And then make sure we send it back as the hash password. Okay. So we're going to test this out, and let me do a return real quick. We are going to return, let's return a success message. And then we're going to say user created successfully. And then there's a way we could actually display the success messages and error messages onto the client side for a better user experience. But let's test this out and see if we actually create somebody in the database. Let's open up our development server. What I want to do is I want to open up MongoDB. So we are using MongoDB as the database. You can sign in. And if you guys are joining now for the first time, this is episode 2. In episode 1, we did create the database. So if you want to go back, you can look at it. And I do have videos as well. So make sure you sign in. After you do that, make sure you're on your project. You can see here at the top left, we're going to browse the collections. And I just want to make sure that we have no user. So we have a user based on the account because that was the Google provider. And then we also have the user as well based on that account. So it's kind of, let me show you it through the Prism schema real quick. So if you look at our schema.prism, if we get in an account, say an account is created on the Google provider, it has all of these properties on it. and then we made sure we have a relation field to the user. And if we have an account created, it automatically creates a user. So the user model is technically going to be where all of the users are, no matter if they sign up with the Google provider or with the credentials provider. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete everything just from our database. Delete the account, delete the user, and we're going to try to register with a credentials provider. So let's refresh this page. We could use this email. That's not my email, but we could use it. Do a password. Let's do a password that doesn't match. And then let's open up the console. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're getting something here. A component is changing an uncontrolled input to be controlled. This is likely caused by the value changing from undefined to defined. Decide between using a controlled or uncontrolled input element for the lifetime of the component. So I got to look at that error, but for now, it's not going to affect anything. But let me register this real quick with 2 different passwords that don't even match. Passwords must be at least 6 characters long, so it catches that up first. So let me do that. So it's loading, and it should be in the network. So we have 200 status back. Let me see if there's a response. So as you can see, the password is 1 2 3 4 5 6, and the password confirmation is 1 2. It's like random numbers, so they don't match. Let me make sure it didn't create a user, because if it did, then our catches aren't working. So no user was created, but I don't see the message. Let me just make sure. Let me close all this. Okay. So if the password doesn't match, we return an error. Passwords do not match. That should be in, technically, if we return an error, shouldn't that be in the response? So there's the payload. We got 200 response. Let's click it again. We get another register. There we go. The passwords do not match. Okay. I don't know why I didn't do it the first time. Let me refresh the page and try it again, just to make sure this check is working. And then obviously we're going to have to display this to the user, which we will. Okay, so let's go to the network tab again, which we're on. Click register, error, passwords do not match. So I guess maybe I didn't refresh the page, but I thought it would be either in the response or the preview, which it is. Okay, so it pretty much stops the code there. So now let's actually use one where passwords match. So 1 2 3 4 5 6. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Register. It's going to keep saying loading. We actually should have probably set the loading to false after, but that's fine. We should have got a user created. Let me see if the user was created. Okay, so the user was created with a name, an email, and a password that's hashed. So that worked. I just don't see the success message. Maybe it's because I had to refresh it again. But we will make sure to display the success message to see if it's actually working. But we successfully actually registered a user with the credentials provider. So that is working. Let's now work on actually displaying the messages if it's an error or a success. And to do that, we have to go back to our register form. And we're going to create 2 components. And we are going to create these components. We are going to create them actually right above the button. Yeah, we're going to create it right above the button. So this will be a form success. This is a component self-closing tag, which we haven't done yet. And then we're going to do this as the form error. And it's going to be like that. So we're going to get an error thrown, which is fine. We have to create those components. And then we're going to have to pass like the pretty much the success or error message in the components. So what we're going to do is we're going to register to the data. We're passing in the data that we get from the register schema. Then we could do .then. We could call this, what can we call that? We could just call that response. I don't like res. Or I mean, I guess we have to. Let me see. No, we don't. But I'll keep it as res, which is the response. And then we could do, I guess, if response.error, then we could store the error and state and update it like that. Let me do that real quick. Let me see something. So we're going to create two states. We're going to say cons. If we could do error and set error, and then it'll be success and set success. And it'll be an empty string to start. So if it's response.error, let's set the error to the response.error. And the reason why we're doing .error is because inside of these returns, it's an object with a parameter of error, so like .error or .success. And we have two errors because we haven't created those components, which is fine. And then let's also set the loading to false to pretty much stop the loading. I'm trying to see if we need anything else. Okay, so response set loading. And then let's do another if. You could do else if you want, but we're going to do if response dot success. Then we could set success to rest.success and set the loading to false. So that works great. Are you guys following along kind of what I'm doing? Do you guys need me to repeat anything? If you do, just let me know. I don't mind. But that is so far our on submit. And that is right here inside of our handle submit. So I actually wrote notes down earlier. So for the ShadCN UI form, I'm going to create a video on YouTube that's going to be obviously better and more organized and just clean cut to the point. But if you look at when we create the form, I know, where is it? So the onSubmit function contains the logic to be executed on the form submission. So that onSubmit function pretty much is the backend logic that we're creating to be executed on the form submission. And the handle submit method takes a callback function as the argument, which is called only when the form is valid and being submitted. So that's pretty much straight from the docs. And if we do look at this, the handle submit function on the form, which the form is defined up here from the use form hook. So this handle submit is only going to run if the data is valid. So if the data seems valid, then this onSubmit function is going to fire off and it's going to run this function right here. So let's see if this is actually working which we're actually not going to be able to see yet. So let's set the error. And what we can do is let's console log the res.error, and then we could console log the res.success and try it out. So I'm going to do an error one first. Oh, I got to comment this out real quick. One sec. Let me comment these two out. Okay. So let's do like Tom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we are going to try to register, and then we're going to look at the, let me look at the console on the client side because that's where I'm doing it. So register, passwords do not match. Perfect. So you see now we can actually take this and display it on the screen. Let's make sure the passwords match. 4, 5, 6. 4, 5, 6. And let's just remove the name. Let's register. Oh shit. Oh, it doesn't even let us register because the name is required. So the use form validation doesn't even let us register it. So that's perfect. So let's do Tom. And I don't even think this is going to let us register it either. Yeah. So we have to do a valid email. But let's do an email that we already done. So it was that brett1@gmail.com. So this email is actually associated with the user in our database. So let's register. And user already exists. Perfect. Okay. So I'm just going through all the checks, making sure everything's kind of working good. And it looks like everything is working good. Let's just do a random user and let's register it. And user created successfully. So the success message is working as well. Okay, perfect. So where's the most common place to display the error? You could, I guess it depends on your liking, but I know a lot of people use like toast notifications. So they could do like a toast notification top right, bottom left. You could do a notification above the button, which is what we're going to do, which is in the form. That's where their eyes are. So kind of doing a notification where their eyes already are is good. But toast notifications like top right or bottom right is good as well. So that's what I'd recommend. And they do have a toast component if you look inside of Chatcn. So as you can see, it pops up right there. I never moved myself back in the corner. Let me do that real quick. But that's, I would say those are pretty much the common places for errors or success. So let's uncomment this and let's create these real quick. So I'm going to create everything inside this auth folder in the components. New file. We're going to say form success.tsx. And then I already have a component that's very similar to this, but I'm going to code it out for us. I'm just trying to see what I named it. Okay, I named it form success. Cool. Okay, so we actually have a package, a icon package that comes with Chatcn when you actually initialize the CLI, and it should be Lucid React or it's another icon library depending on if you pick New York or default. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a check icon, and this is from Lucid React, and this is going to be for the success. It's pretty much just an icon. We're going to make it green, and then obviously if it's an error, we'll make it red. We're going to have to set props in here, and then let me just export const form success. We're just making an arrow function. I could have used the snippet, but whatever. And then we need to actually pass in that state. So what we console logged, and then we stored in state into this component here. So we're going to go back to the form success. I'm going to remove this console log. Hey, what's up, man? Hello, how you doing? Shihar? Is that how you say it? Welcome. We're just going over the register logic on the back end. So I'm going to remove the console logs, and we set those console logs inside a state. We either set it in the error variable or the success variable. So we could say message equals success. And then we're going to get an error because it can't find the name success. So let's import it. And then we're going to get another error. Pretty much saying that its type is void, blah, blah, blah. Type message string is not assignable to intrinsic value. Property message does not exist on this. So we have to go inside the form success. What we could do is we are going to accept a message. And technically it is going to be optional. So you have to chain on the optional operator, which is a question mark, because you might get an error message, not a success. And we're going to have string right here. And then what we're going to do is we have to accept it in the props here. So we're going to do message. And then we're going to tag along the form success props. Cool. Okay, so we're going to create a parent div for this component. Get that check icon, and then let's give it a class name of width of 4 and a height of 4 as well. And then we could actually do the text in there if you wanted, but it's not. Yeah, let's do the text emerald 500. And when you do it, you can see the text color here. So you can see it. You can see all of the properties when you hover over it. I'm using Tailwind IntelliSense. It's like an extension. So if you type that in, I think it just shows you all of the properties when you hover over them. And let's style this real quick. So let's style this to make it look good. And I'm going to just put this side by side real quick. So when we style stuff, I like looking at it side by side. I think it's this one. Oh, let me comment out the form error because technically we're getting it. And then we're getting an error on form success still. Cannot be used as a JSX component. Did I import it right? Yeah, it looks like I imported it right. And then we got the message equals success. Huh. Let me see. Oh, I don't have a return. That's why. If no message, and then I need a return because it's actually not returning anything. So I'm probably getting an error off that. That's why it's kind of good to use snippets sometimes. And yeah, now it's working. Cool. Perfect. Okay. So what we are going to test is the success message. So technically, this should be good. And we should, let's do another account. So Mike, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to register. And then we have this check icon here. It's very hard to see. That doesn't look that good. And we need to display the message too, which will help. So let's display the message in a p tag underneath. Hopefully it stays there. Okay, user created successfully. Perfect. So let's make this a flex. Do you guys use gap or do you use space X, like whatever? So like space X4. Because it gives some space. Items center, I think, because you could tell they're not like centered. It's not like straight up. There we go. We're going to do a BG of emerald 500. And then we need opacity on it because you see it's too dark. So maybe like, let's try 30. Maybe 20. Let's try 20. Use gap x4. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people use that. I used to use use gap x4. Is there a gap x4? But space is also fine. I wonder what the difference is. I don't even know what the difference is, honestly. The text isn't being emerald there, so let me there we go. Cool. There's not enough padding. Let's do a padding all the way around of like 2 maybe. Looks good. Rounded, maybe large. That's pretty good. Other than that, it looks pretty good. User created successfully. Okay, so that looks good. I'm just going to copy this over, and then we're going to create the error one too. Oh, let me not copy that. With Flexbox and Grid Gap, yeah. How can you even tell which one looks better though? I feel like it's like really hard to tell. Maybe I guess if you do different viewports, you should be able to tell. I'm not 100%. But let's create another file called form error.tsx. I'm just going to paste this all in here. We're accepting a message. Let's rename the component to form error. Instead, let's look for a different icon, like maybe an X. I don't know. Oh, let's see if X works. X, blah, blah, blah. Let's change the color. So the text is going to be red. Let's do 500. And the background should be red 500 with the 30% opacity. And then everything else should look the same. Okay, let me refresh the page. Let's do the same email again. And it should say my emails are the same or something like that. Or maybe the password is different because I think I might actually typed in a different password. Oh, we didn't even pass in the so we got to uncomment the form error, which would help. Let's import the form error from the file we just created. And then we must pass the message of where we stored it, which is going to be in the error variable, like that. And then let me make sure everything's good here. We accept the message. It's optional. Okay, looks good. Let's try now. User already exists. Looks pretty good. I think there's another variable I could use. Yeah, this one's better. Let me do this one. I don't like the X. Doesn't look that good. Oh, it's from React Icons. Why don't we make the error components outside auth so we can use it in different forms? Do you mean just take them out of the auth folder, or like just make it more general? I'm going to use the React Icons package too. So I'm going to npm install React Icons. Let's see how this one looks. You mean a generic one? Yeah, we could e.prevent default. Any good message than user already exist. Why don't we make the error component outside auth? I mean, we can make a generic one. I'll keep these for now, but we can make a generic. Obviously, with the help of you guys, we could definitely make a generic one. E.prevent default. Where are you saying put that in the onSubmit function, Akash? And yes, more general. Any good message then user already exists. I guess we can make. Yeah, true. So we can use it if the database server not. Would you still name it form success and form error? Or would you just say just totally not form? Form success. I don't know if you do the e.prevent default for this. Can't find the name E. I think I looked at the documents earlier for the use form hook, and I think it just prevents it by default. That's built in on the use hook form. I don't think you have to pass in the event. I'm not 100% sure, but correct me if I'm wrong. And then we could create a form error. I guess, yeah, we could do that. Let's create a form error inside of the components. So form, or because we need it for error handling instead of. Well, I technically already have a form error, so wait, why would I? So you're saying keep the form error because you said form error, but I already have a form error.tsx. Or would you just put like an error.tsx? Form error for what exactly? The form error is just for the errors that I'm gonna minimize this screen now. So the only errors that I'm sending based on the form, technically I just do you said if the database doesn't exist, if it goes down, const user exists. So the form error just pretty much shows these errors I'm showing here in these server action. So if it's not validated, invalid input data, instead of user already exists, you're saying use a different message. I know that was one of the comments. I don't know if there's any other good message than user already exists. Maybe email already is in use. Please try another one. Let's say user enters a form data and the database server is down. So we have to show the user something went wrong. How would you check to see if the database went down? So like say if we're using Prism ORM, like what method would you run to make sure? So like server error 502. Is that what a database server error is? Would they automatically get a 502? Or do you have to create that custom? I think, can't you just do, so if we go back to the code up here, we go to our register form, and then can we do another statement? So can we do if it's a 502 though for sure? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna use ChatGPT, see what it gives me. We are gonna try that. I am using next.js. One. Being able. Let me see if I could do this. What is AR? It's like some extension on ChatGPT that I was trying to do for like SEO, but I think I was only using the free version, and they have like a pro version. It's like some extensions people create. I don't really use it honestly, so I don't know if it's like something you actually do. So this is what they're saying. To handle 502 error when accessing the database, you can wrap your database related code in a try and catch block and handle the error accordingly. In the catch block, you can set an error that can be displayed to the user. Here's an example of how you can modify your register function. All in a try, and then the catch. That makes sense. How do I install that extension? You got 503 Google search engine GPT? Wait, so it's not a 502? I just searched ARPM and you just install it. I think they're the Google Chrome store. Yeah, 503 service unavailable. Okay. That makes sense. Okay, so we're gonna do that. We're gonna do this method right here. So I'm gonna just have this catch. There's that. Okay. Errors of type unknown. So 503 is the best code, but we can send the user to a 503 page saying sorry, request not available. So you're saying create a custom 503 page? I know this one, you see fix using Copilot, that's really good. So errors type unknown. And you accept, and then it fixes the type error. Code string, code as string. We could do this because I guess for now, and then we could always create a custom page. But I guess what ChatGPT says was run a try block for all of this code. And then underneath, run the catch. You could console log the error, database error, whatever the error is. And then if the error is this code, ETI timed out, unable to connect database, please try again later. If it's a 503, service temporarily unavailable, please try again later. And then else an unexpected error occurred, please try again later. So those are 3 checks, I guess, if the database gives us an error. So, and then obviously it'll display as the error message that we created here. So I think that should handle, yeah, res.error, res.error, res.success. That should handle all of the checks, I feel like, for the register form. Let me just make sure everything's working though successfully. I'm going to delete all the users that we created real quick. And then after this, we're going to go to the login functionality. Okay. Let's go to this page. Oh, no, I'll add that in a second. Let me test this out. So Brett 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Register, successful. And it's there, so it's working. Okay. So everything looks like it's working good. I do want to add pretty much soon, after we do the login functionality, where we send like the user verification token, they verify their email, and then they could be able to log in, which I've watched a video on how to do it, so I could show you guys how to do it as well. That's why we have this verification token model right here with parameters that we already pretty much came up with and made in episode 1. Okay. Let's go back to our code and we are done with the register. The Google one works too, but I'm going to create a button when we do the login. So let's work on the login functionality. So we're on the login page and we have a login form. And for this login form, I think it's honestly going to be almost the same as the register page when it comes to the UI. So the first thing we should do is we should create a schema called the login schema. So export const login schema. This is going to equal the z.object. And what we can do is we have to figure out what we want them to log in with. I think they should be able to log in with the email and the password. I mean, that's pretty simple. So email z.string, so it's going to be a string. And is also going to be checking for an email. Cool. And then the password, I think we only have to do, we don't have to do a minimum check, because if the password was checked in the register, we don't have to check the minimum here. So it just has to be a string. I think like that. I think that's all we kind of need. Let me look at my other files to see. Yeah, that's pretty much all we need, I think. Okay. And now let's do error messages. So message. We could do, yeah, please enter a valid email. Sure. And then we could say password is required. Why are we doing that? Object literal may only specific null passwords and messages not exist in type. I guess it doesn't exist in the string, which I feel like it would, but let me check. So, yeah, let's just do the minimum. We'll do it to 1, and then we'll just do please enter a password. Yeah. Please enter a valid password. Okay, so that's good for the login schema. Next, what I want to do is go in the login. Well, let's go into the register form. And creating that card wrapper is good because we could just, I'm going to copy this whole page. This is the register form page. We're going to do a new file called the login form.tsx. I already have it. Okay, I just didn't create anything. And we're just going to paste it. Let's rename the function to the component to login form. Move this to login form as well. And then we are going to, let's see, we are going to actually use the login schema. We are going to use the card wrapper. We're going to use the use form hook. We're going to use the form. We don't need the form description. I'm not using that. We need the card wrapper. We need the Zod resolver, the login schema, the input. We need Z from Zod. We need the button. We need the use state. We don't need the register because we're going to create a different one. We could do form success and then form error. I guess we could do form success. We could definitely do form error. Do you guys think we should do form success or just navigate them to like the dashboard? This is going to be a login schema instead. The schema that we're going to go off of is the login schema. And then we don't have a name because we don't have that in the schema that we created. We have an email and password. This is going to accept the login schema. And then what we're going to do down here, we have the card wrapper. We're going to have a header label. This is going to be log into your account. Into your account. The title is going to be login. The back button, if you don't want to be on this page, is going to be auth/register. And the back button label is don't have an account register here. You're saying not really navigate to dashboard? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm just going to navigate. I'm going to use the form error, but not the form success. There's no point of showing a success message and then sitting there still on the login page. Doesn't make sense. But so the first field, email, which is good. Form label, email. We have the input. This form message to this component right here inside the form field for the ShatCN form, this is actually showing the message of the error based on the form. So that error we created in the register schema, that shows it right here below the input. What we could do here is we could remove this whole form field. We'll keep the password one, and we'll keep the password one, and let's remove the password confirmation one. Let's remove the form success. We'll keep the form error. And then it's either going to be loading or login. So I'm just literally changing all of this to match up with the login form. So we do have two errors, which is this right here. So let's remove this for now. And then we could actually, instead of the let's create another action real quick. Let's create a login.ts file. And let's just do export. How did I do it here? Let's see. Yeah. Export const login. It's going to equal an asynchronous value. Oh. Asynchronous component. Arrow function. And then let's just return user logged in successfully, just for now. And let's import it here inside the login form. So let's do login, and it's a server action. And oh, let's mark it as the use server. We also have to import all from Zod, so thank you GitHub Copilot. Other than that, I think we are good with the login page. So the login page displays the login form. The login form, pretty much it says expected 0 arguments but got 1. So we have to actually import. We are going to be using database functions, so we need that from Prism. We need to actually use bcrypt, I think. I'm not 100%. Let me see. Let's do that. And let's import the login schema from that schemas folder. And what we could do here is we could do, what do we named it in here? We named it data. Okay. So data z.infer type of login schema. So we're pretty much validating the data with this z.infer method from Zod. And I actually have it pulled up here. So we could go to the docs and let's just look for the infer schema method. Or it's actually not a method. What is it? I don't know what it is. It's somewhere, but look, if we look at the parse too, given any Zod schema, you can call its parse method to check data is valid. If it is, a valid value is returned with the full type information. Otherwise, an error is thrown. The value returned by the parse is a deep clone of the variable you passed in. So they're creating a variable called string schema equals z.string. If this string schema.parse is fish, then returns fish. If it's a number, then it just throws an error. So that's what it does. Example. So we're going to use the parse because we could parse the data to make sure it's good. So yeah, validate the input. So we're going to do cons, validated data. equals the login schema.parse. And then we're doing the data that we get. And then let's console log the data just to make sure everything's good. Okay, so let's test this out, what we have now. Our server is running. Let's save this. Our login form is going to have errors, so let's actually, let's remove this. Okay, so now we have no errors. Let's go to our login form now. Already have an account. We click it. It should go to it. Now we have a login. Don't have an account. Register here. Perfect. And the reason why it's working is because of that card wrapper. It's a reusable component that we made depending on the page we're in. So log into your account, log in, register, create an account. So if we log in, nothing should work, but we should get a console log in the back end. Loading. It's just going to stay loading. And then, yeah, we get email right here and then the password as well. So we're actually validating the data and logging it to the console successfully. So we're good there. Next step I want to do, I guess if the data is invalid, return an error. Yeah. So invalid input data. We could probably name this something better, but for now, I guess we could leave it. It's not a crazy big deal. Okay, so next, let's actually... Let me see the difference between parse and save parse. So we have a parse, which throws an error, and a save parse. If you don't want Zod to throw errors when validation fails, use the .save parse. This method returns an object containing either the successfully parsed data or a Zod error instance containing detailed information about the validation problems. And it's the same thing. I mean, I guess we could do a save parse. It's not a big deal. Okay. Next thing I want to do is, like we did with the other thing, destructure the validated data. So we have the email and password, and it's just coming from the validated data. Or it's not. Property password does not exist on type safe parse return type. Okay, let's just do parse then. Let's just make sure we're actually getting these destructured, so email and password. Let's go back to the form. Do we have the other console? No, we don't. Refresh the page. And yeah, we're getting them right here. Destructured too. Okay, cool. So we're actually getting that destructured. Nice. And the next thing we need to do is we need to check if the user exists with a given email. So what I watched a video from Code with Antonio, he creates these functions in separate files, which I like. It keeps everything organized. So he actually has inside of, I'm going to close all this up. We could create a data folder on the root layer of our project. And inside that, we could create a user.ts file. And we could do functions here. So we could do import of database from lib/prism. And what he did was create two functions. He created one called the export cons get user by email. And it is an asynchronous function because we are querying our database. What we are receiving is obviously the email, hence the name get user by email. Inside the code, we are just running a simple const user equals await database dot user dot is going to be find first or find unique. And then we're email. And then all we're going to do is return the user. And then one thing I was running into my other project when I did this is I just want to make sure this is how it is done. Let me just really quickly check. So I'm going to create a user real quick and I'm going to explain as I do it. Okay. So I'm going to create an email like Tom, but I'm going to use a capital T. And I want to see if this T is undercase or lowercase when they actually check it. So Tom, because that was causing me a lot of issues and I had to do it too lowercase. So let me check. So we're going to check the user. So it is in uppercase, tom@gmail.com, saved in the database. And what I did in my other code was I did const new email equals email.to lowercase. So the reason why is because when I was typing in the emails, we have to make sure everything is lowercase, we might as well send the email in the database lowercase and then make sure this is lowercase so we have no issues. Because I know being uppercase was causing an issue, so let's do that. Yeah, I'm going to change all the strings to the database to lowercase. I'm pretty sure that's what I have to do. So in the register, every email is unique. Yeah, true. So it could be uppercase. I feel like by default, all emails just go lowercase, but I could be wrong. Yeah, no, you're right. It could be. So what I'm going to do is when we destructure this, we're going to see if the user exists. And if the user exists, then we throw an error. Then if not, I want to say const I need to name this something lower case email, and then email equals email to lowercase. And then just do a hash like this and then put lowercase email. And I'm going to try it again with the capital. Let me see. Okay, save. Go back. Let's do mike11@gmail.com with the capital, and let's see if it actually lowercases it in the database. I just want to see. Register, user created successful. And yeah, it did lowercase it, so perfect. I do want all the emails to be lowercase. It'll just make it a lot easier when we're actually trying to request stuff. So I'm going to do that. Let me minimize this. I was running into the issue, Loco, when I had my voice fusion though. So when I was trying to retrieve a user, I kept getting null. And then let me move this code over. And then when I did this constant email equals email to lowercase to get the user by email, I was actually able to get the email successfully only when I was able to pretty much put the email into lowercase with that JavaScript method. That was the only way I was able to actually get it working. So I think I'm just going to send all of the emails lowercase in, and they could type it uppercase if they want the input. But when we log in and see, and then we try to find the actual user, I'm just going to make sure it's lowercase as well. So we're going to say const lowercase email equals email to lowercase, and then where email equals lowercase email, like that. And then just return a user. So that is getting the user by email. Oh, you're agreeing with me? Oh, my fault. I thought you weren't. I mean, even if you weren't, it's not a big deal. I like bouncing ideas off people. So that is, and then we're going to get the user by ID as well. This will be asynchronous. This is going to take in the ID, which will be a string. It'll be an arrow function. And what we are going to do is we could do const user equals await database.user.find unique, where the ID is that. We're not going to use this now because obviously this is more for, I think, backend. We're going to use it later, but we're going to get the user by email inside the login. So we want to check to see if there's a user. So check if a user exists, and this is where we're going to use that function. And instead of writing this, which we could have actually wrote this, but it's not a big deal. We could have our own functions in a separate folder, which I feel like is, it's cleaner. It's a lot cleaner for sure. So what we're going to do is const user exists equals await, and then we named it get user by email, and then pass in the email. And then we're going to say if the user does not exist, return an error. Oh, true. So if there's no user exist, then we return an error. So we have to do, actually, I think we have to make it null. So let me do a try catch real quick. Try catch. I'm going to move all this up inside the try block. And in the catch, let me just return null. Let me do the same thing with this as well. And then I got to actually return the user here. Oh. And then return null here. So if we don't get anything, it's going to be, there's going to be no user exists. So we're going to say user does not exist. Or, yeah, user does not exist. That's good. Okay. Next. Well, this is actually, because I'm looking at my other code here. So if a user exists, if no user exists, returns it in error. Okay, so here's a problem too as well, where we are going to have to actually do. So if there is no user or there is no user exist dot email, or there's no user exist dot password. I remember doing this because the way it was explained is because a user might not exist. No, a user might exist. Let me try to put this into words, because I know you could log in with your Google provider and this error you could get hit with if the user does not exist. Because this login should only be for people using the credentials provider. So if there's no user exist, then return this. Okay, so like, for example, if I'm signing in with my Google provider and that email is going to exist, it's not going to hit that return because of the error, because it does exist, but actually I shouldn't be logging in with that. So we have to have an email and password, because the Google provider should only log in with the Google provider. So that's why we have these 3 checks. I'm going to revisit this, but I know that's the right thing I should do. And we're just going to revisit it later. But I know the other thing we need to do is inside of our auth.js. I'm just going to put this pages sign in will be auth login like that. Redo that as well. We're we're spreading all of the properties and attributes of the auth config inside of our next auth. We have a session, strategy, this, and then our auth config, we need to actually do the credentials provider. Because on the login page, we actually have to run the sign in method. Let me go back up to my code. I'm going to go inside of my code real quick, my other code, and see what I did. Okay, yeah, that's what we have to do. We have to do the asynchronous authorized callback function. Let me just go to the docs and check everything out. So if we go to providers, credentials, the credential providers allows you to handle signing in with arbitrary credentials such as username, password, blah, blah, blah. So we have to do the credentials provider, the name to display on the sign-in form, sign in with the credentials, which I don't think we need that because that's only if it was the, if you're using their pretty much sign-in page, which we created a custom one with obviously ShadCN. Credentials is used to generate a form on the sign-in page. You can specify which fields should be submitted by adding keys to the credentials object. Example, domain, blah, blah, blah. You can pass in the credentials, username, password, which we don't have to add that either because I think these three right here, you only would use if you're using their sign-in form, which we're not. This is what we need to use right here. Add logic here to look up the user from the credentials supplied. Okay. So we have an authorize function that takes in the credentials provider. Takes in the credentials right here. Okay. So this is pretty much doing checks on the login. So what we could do is we can actually let me go back to the login right here, our login action. And what I have to do is, so if the user doesn't exist, we're going to throw an error. So if the user exists, we're good. We're going to see if the user exists. And then let's do a try catch right here. So it's going to run all these checks. And if it gets here, we have to await the sign in. And this is coming from @/auth, I think. Let me make sure. Yeah, it's coming from here from now. So we have the sign in, and then the sign in takes in the provider, the built-in provider, or a string, or an object, or undefined. So the credentials, it takes in the credentials provider. And then options here, form data, undefined, redirect true or undefined. I guess it's the form data, right? Yeah, that's it. So user exists.email and then user exists.password. And then I think there's a redirect. And we could redirect this to, say, dashboard. Because after they log in, we're going to redirect to the dashboard. Or is that even, the type string is not assignable to type boolean or undefined. So it's a boolean redirect true undefined redirect to dashboard. There we go. Catch. Actually have a catch right here with an error in it. And this is for TypeScript only. So let me do this. It's auth error. I think that is from next/auth. It's just part of the TypeScript because I was getting a type error here. So auth error, and their docs are kind of weird. So like if we search for let's see, auth error. Where am I right here? Your next auth base error class for auth.js errors. It's optimized to be printed in server logs in a nicely formatted way via the logger.error option. So type is error type. The error type used to identify the error in the logs. Auth error. Okay. So that's for the console of that. And then we do a try here. Sign in with the credentials. And then just to make sure this is working, I just want to make sure everything's working good. Let's do an async authorized credentials. Why are we getting an error for this credential authorized right here? Type credentials is promise void is not signable. Type credentials, blah, blah, blah. I think it's got to return a user or null. Let me do. Okay, yeah, that's what it was. Okay, return null, console log the credentials. Okay, let me try this and see if I actually get a console log. Let me do it from auth config file. Okay, let's see if we get something. Let's save it. Okay, I already have an account. Log in. Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Log in. It's just going to keep loading. I just want to see if we actually get a console. Auth config file. Email, Brett, password that, callback URL, dashboard. Nice. Okay. The credentials sign in, read more at errors, blah, blah, blah. I mean, obviously I'm not done with it, but we are actually, that's the credentials. We are passing it in from this login. So this sign in function, which I could look up real quick. Sign in. Set on a successful, oh, these are events. This isn't set on a successful sign in. The message would be an object and contain the user account profile as use new user. Okay. That's not it, but we have to go through the docs a little more to actually see what's going on. Let me see. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to log in. And then we need to do the checks here inside of the auth config file. So let's do the checks again. Validated data, or yeah, validated credentials equals. Let's import the login schema from schemas. we're going to do a safe parse of the credentials. So we're making sure everything's good. If it's good, it's going to return those same values inside the validated credentials variable now. And then, or no, it's just going to give us, let me console log this real quick. Okay, let me save it because GitHub's saying there's a dot success at the end of it. Oh, it does. It gives you a success true and data of that. Let me see if I do parse, if that's even different. Parse. Loading. Okay, I think it should do it. So safe parse gives you a success or not. And then parse doesn't. So safe parse and parse. Let me look at this again. If you don't want Zaw to throw errors, there, that's what it is. Success is true, data, and success is false. Okay. And then the parse will throw an error or just return. Makes sense. Nice. Okay. So you do safe parse if you want it to be success or not. So if there's no validated credentials dot success, you're going to return null. And then we could just say destructure it from the dot data, right? Let me see what the console gave us. Yeah, data, email, password. Yeah, it stores it in a data object. So like data, Billy, and then true. Dot error. Okay, that makes sense. And then what we're going to do here is, yeah, we're going to use that function we created. Await get user by email and then pass in the email. So that means if there's a user. So if there's no user or there's no user password that equals the password, then we return null. Let's see how this check's going to do. So if there's a user, it's going to show up here. So we're going to say if there is no user, and there's no user dot password, then let's return null. Because I think you only can return null and stuff. I'm going to try with errors too. And there's no password. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to say const. Then we got to check if the passwords match then. Passwords. So that means there's no user. Return null. Const passwords match equals await bcrypt. Import compare from bcrypt.js. Is that how the import is? Or no? Bcrypt from bcrypt.js, like that. Okay. There's the method.compare, and then we're doing the password and then the user password, right? So we have the password that we get from where they typed, and then the user dot password, and then compare method asynchronously compares the given data against the given hash. Okay. The string and then the hash. Okay, makes sense. Yeah. So let's do a check. If passwords match, then we return a user. Else, you're going to pretty much just stop there, and then it's going to return null, and then satisfy everything here. Okay, I think we pretty much got everything for the login. We don't need database here actually anymore. And we might not need it in the register anymore. Let's see. No, we need it to create a user. Okay, let's try it out. We're going to try everything from the beginning and test it out. Okay, so we're gonna Brett1. Oh, let's create an account. So Brett at Gmail. Brett 1 2 3 4 5 6. User created successfully. Let's check. It should be Brett at Gmail. With the hash password, perfect. Let's already have an account. Brett at Gmail. 1 2 3 4. Before I do this, let me make sure I have everything showing. Oh wait, no, never mind. If it's successful, it's good, but let me make sure the error one's working. So we go to components, auth, login form. Oh, we gotta do the login data right here. So we pass in the login data. Then if we get a response, let's do an arrow function. So if there's a if response dot error, then we're gonna set the error to res.error and set the loading to false. Else just set loading to false, because we're not showing a success message, so we don't need this. We just have the error, and then passing the message in as the error, and then the form error. So it's okay. And what errors do we throw? Invalid input data. User does not exist. Let's do a user does not exist. I want to see if that works. User does not exist. Perfect. Okay, so the error is working. So now let's actually try to log in. And if it logs in successfully, it should actually just redirect us to the dashboard. Let's make sure though. Sign in, calls in the sign in function, goes through credentials. The credentials then looks at the auth config, redirect to dashboard. Okay, catch. And let's just, for now, let's create a new folder inside the app called site. And inside of the site, let's create another folder called dashboard, and then a page.tsx, create a React functional component. I'm going to call this dashboard page. And then I know, just to make sure we could console log it, I want to make sure it's all working correct. We had to use this auth right here inside of our auth.js file. So let me just import it at the top. And then we're going to be able to create a function from this too. @/auth. Auth is declared, but its value is never read. Import auth. Oh, it must be like that. Okay, cool. And then what we could do is we could console.log the auth. Okay, we could try that. Let's try that. Let's try it. If we get mistakes, we'll just fix it. So we have a Brett@Gmail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Login. Invalid credentials. Was that the right? Let me make sure that was the right password. I don't even know the password I typed. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, already have an account. Put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Invalid credentials, and that was 100% the Let me make sure that's the right email. Yep, it's the right email. So we're getting invalid credentials even though we're logging in with the right information. So let's see what's going on. A login. We're getting this return right here. So whatever this is not working. Let's check. Let's try. We got to console log some stuff. If you guys are in the chat, any recommendations would be nice. So we're getting this console where it says invalid credentials. And if we go to the auth config, if it's not success, return null. Let's console log the user. And then if no user or there's no user.password, return null. Let's console log the password match as well. This should all be in the server, so let's see if we actually get it. Passwords match is false. Okay, Okay, so that's where our problem is right now. So it's actually firing this function, and then it's just return null. And then when it returns null, it just runs this catch. Trying to so it's going to here, it's awaiting bcrypt from bcrypt.js .compare its password and user.password. Passwords match is false. So the user.password is hashed, that's for sure. Let's try console logging that password. That password is hashed too. So we're trying to compare a hashed password with a hashed password. So we're getting the credentials. Huh. Oh, I think it's because we're passing in the wrong password here. User exists.password gets it from there. It should be the password. That's what it is. And it doesn't have to be, it could just be, oh, we could do it like that. Almost 100% positive this is why it's not working. Let's try it again. Okay, now we're getting a different error. It did take us to the dashboard page. And on the dashboard page, I think I console logged. No, it's const. How do you get the user from the auth? I know it's a certain way. Let me check real quick. Oh yeah, const session equals await auth. And this has to be asynchronous. And then let's do console.log the session. And yeah, we're logged in right there. So we are logged in. It's kind of weird it threw an error. Let me see what the error was. Oh, I gotta log us out. Fuck. Okay. Actually, I don't even think it might be in cookies. Have all these cookies. Okay, so let's see if we're getting any errors. Nope. I just want to see if we're getting any console log errors as well. Let's do tom11@gmail.com. Tom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now we're getting an error right when we start doing confirm password. Let's see. Let me redo that again. So the confirm password is throwing us an error. A component is changing an uncontrolled input to be controlled. This is likely caused by the value change. Oh, I think I know why. Because we don't have the default value for that. That is in the register form. I remember our default values. We got to put password confirmation as an empty string. And then we have to go to the register. Okay, I think everything should be good now. Let me refresh. Tom 11, Tom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Register. User successful, no consoles. Already have an account. Yep. Tom 11. 1, 2, 3. It's showing a quick error. What is that error? Passwords match true, session, blah, blah, blah. Yep, everything's good. I'm gonna let me just comment out these consoles because I do want to have them for future use because they're really good consoles actually. Passwords match, that's a good console. That's a good console. Yeah, this not really. We know we're getting that. Yeah, I think that's good. So we're logged in. And then let me see. So it doesn't store anything in the local host. Nope. But in the cookies, we have this auth cookie value. Delete, delete. Let's refresh the dashboard page. Session null. Okay. So it just stores cookies from the JWT. And if there's no of those cookies, then it just logs you out. Next thing I want to do, which is probably going to be the last thing for tonight, this and episode 2, is I want to add the Google button, the Google provider button, so we can log in with Google as well. So I have this up here of how I actually styled it. So we are inside of the auth. We are going to create another file called Google login.tsx. This, we will create this as a use client because it is a button. We're going to import the sign in function, and that is from next auth/react, which actually, no, it's not. We are going to use the sign in from @/auth, right? And then we're going to import. No, that's not even. They have a React icon library, the React icons library. They have a FC Google. It's a nice little Google icon we're going to use. We're also going to import the button from shadcn. /components/UI button. And then we also are going to that's pretty much it. We actually don't even probably need to use client. Let's see if we can do it without. Export const Google login. Let's do a return. Let's do a button. We could do that for now. This on click, we're gonna have an arrow function. It's gonna be sign in with the Google provider. So it's either Google or credentials that you put in the sign in function. So if we do this, it gives you a bunch: Google, HubSpot, Instagram, Identity Server 4, Node Mailer. Like there's so many, but obviously we're just gonna do Google because this is for the Google provider. We can make the button size large. Variant, I guess outline. Class name for sure, maybe like with full. Let's see how it looks, and then but first let's import it. So we have the Google login, and that should be right below the button on the login form and on probably the register form. It should be probably right below that form. So I'm in the login form. Let's see if it actually took place where it should be. So auth/login. Yeah, it's just not styled good, but we can style it real quick. And then we can test it out as well. And this logic for signing in with Google is actually not hard. All it is was a sign in, and then you pass in the string Google. So it's pretty easy for that. So we go to the Google login. We made this a reusable component. Let's do space Y. Let's try 3. Oh no, that's doing it for the wrong thing. This button. Let's try margin top 3. Okay. Space X3 maybe. It's pretty good. That separates the icon and the login with Google. Yeah, and that looks pretty good, honestly. Let's click it. One error. Invariant headers expect to have a request async storage. None available. Is it supposed to be an asynchronous call? Huh. Let's okay. Maybe you have to use the client because I am using to use an on click. Let's save it. Refresh. Nope. Invariant headers expect to have a request async storage. None available. Huh. Does anybody in the chat know why this error is getting caused right here? Invariant headers expect to have an async none available. What does that mean? Control C, sign in with Google. Our auth config, Google client, blah, blah, blah. We have the .env. Let's ChatGPT it. It seems like you're encountering a JavaScript error related to promises and expected function called headers. The error message also mentions something about request async storage not being available. Here are a few things you could check and consider. It looks like there might be an issue with accessing or using async storage in your code. Ensure that you have set up and configured async storage correctly. If you're using a library or framework that relies on async storage, make sure it's properly integrated. Oh. Google provider. Return all the profile information you need. The only truly required field is ID to be able to identify the account when it added to a database. This is an example of how to enable automatic linking, automatic account linking. It's crazy because the code I have above, it works. It's a little different. Let me try the syntax of that code up there. So what they do, it's a weird error. So we have an on click, and then this on click above, I just created a on click sign in with Google function. And then what we're going to pass here is Google. We could copy this. Maybe because I have to do a wait. Let me see. I wonder if that's why. It might be, honestly. Okay. Pretty sure it's got to be use client with an on click. Something about invariant headers. The provider is Google, and then the response is a promise which was rejected. Invariant headers expects to have a request async storage. Oh, the other thing that I have up here is it from a different package, which could be it. next-auth/react. There should be no reason for a function. It should just be an on click with the sign in with Google. Use client. Okay. And it's from a different package. This might work. And it does work. Nice. So make sure if you're using the Google provider, it's coming from next-auth/react. So it can't come from the auth.js. So this sign in looks like it's only for the credentials. Because I'm using it here. Sign in from auth and it works. And I know it's console log in the credentials. Yeah. Okay, so now all we have to do is just add that to the register now too. So underneath the form, inside the card wrapper, we're just going to do a Google, what did I name it? Google login? Yeah, Google login from here. Okay, so let's make this full page. Already have an account. Cool. Perfect. So now we have the login and register page completely done. Almost done. It's the only things I want to add is I do want to add a forgot password. So if they forgot the password, we are going to want to send them. I think we created the model already. Let me see. We want to send a password reset token with the ID, an email, a token, and expires. So we want that. And then we also want to send a verification token so they could verify their email if they sign in with the credentials provider. And then other than that, I think that's pretty much it with the authentication. Change the login to sign in. Oh yeah. Sign in with Google you're talking about? Google login. Sign in with Google or login. Don't have an account, register here. Sign in with Google, already have an account. Okay, cool. Authentication, that definitely it definitely takes a lot. And especially since we're using next.auth, we're not using Clerk. It's going to take us a little bit longer, but like I said, I just think it's worth, I don't know. I think it's worth putting the time in to do it and have a really polished authentication system that allows us to track users, because we're going to use Stripe to obviously hook up user accounts to see if they're pro members or not. We're going to have to create the OpenAI assistant or use something from ChatGPT, OpenAI APIs, to create the chatbot, which I haven't done yet. Wait, no, I only meant for the register page, not login. I don't understand what you mean. I only meant for the register page, not the login. When you sign in with Google, regardless, if you're on register or login, it would be sign in, won't it? Oh yeah, async awaits not supported. Yeah, let me click that off. Okay, but other than that, for sure, next stream we are going to do the verification token and the password reset token. that will be the first business we do. And then after that, we will actually create a navigation bar and make sure all of our routes are set up correctly, and just make sure all of our code is clean as well. And then we'll keep continuing from there. So this SaaS is going to take us a while for sure, but it's definitely a good process to follow. A lot of good skills we've been already implementing, and I mean, this is definitely one of the more modern technologies and frameworks out there to use right now. But other than that, thank you guys for sticking around on a Friday night to watch me live stream and code. Really appreciate it. But other than that, I'm either going to live stream tomorrow night or Sunday for sure. So one of the other ones, I'll make sure to obviously schedule a live so you guys could be updated. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube, join the Discord, just stay updated with all the notifications. And if you do have any messages, hit me up on Discord. That'll probably be the best. But other than that, you guys have a good night.